Hi, everyone. This has been a day of days where, starting at 7 o'clock this morning, I started getting phone calls about breaking news and animal mutilations and trying to continue to communicate with a couple of people who were going to go up to Sunspot to see what the current status was. And I was able to.
It's still unlisted. We have to start over.
Hi, everyone. Sorry that we are late. There's been a terrible thunderstorm here tonight, but it is now quiet. And because of breaking news, starting at 7 o'clock this morning and going all day long until I was editing just about a half hour ago, an interview with the Otero County Sheriff, Benny House, on what in the world has happened at Sunspot. And so tonight, what I'm going to do is lead off with that story and then evolve and go through a whole bunch of other news that came to me today. And I have been trying to get everything organized so I could share with you tonight. So thank you for your patience in these first 15 minutes. Now, since the FBI closed down the National Solar Observatory in Sunspot on September 6th, no one, not even the Otero County Sheriff, Benny House, has known why for the past 2 weeks. The press release issued late in the day on Sunday, September 16th, about 3 days ago, from the Association of Universities for Research in Astronomy, also known as AURA, said there was, quote, an ongoing law enforcement investigation of criminal activity that occurred at Sacramento Peak, close quote, their press release. The Solar Observatory is atop Sacramento Peak's 9,200-foot crest, and it overlooks the sensitive military installations of White Sands Missile Range and Holloman Air Force Base. The press release also stated, quote, the decision to vacate was based on the logistical challenges associated with protecting personnel at such a remote location, meaning the observatory on top of Sacramento Peak, and the need for expeditious response to the potential threat. AURA determined that moving the small number of on-site staff and residents off the mountain was the most prudent and effective action to ensure their safety, close quote. But if the FBI was ordering the close down and evacuation at AURA's request, those called to evacuate people and to provide security was the Otero County Sheriff's Office. And the lack of any information made Sheriff Benny House angry. This week, still with no information from the FBI or AURA about what the alleged criminal activity is, Sheriff House told the El Paso, Texas ABC affiliate, quote, I think it's chicken, S-H-I-T, the way the FBI handled it. Is there a bomb threat? Is there an active shooter? Is it chemical? We need to know so we know what kind of manpower to send up there. And without knowing, it's dangerous for everybody. We've asked and asked the FBI, and they will not tell us anything, close quote. Well, this afternoon, I talked with Sheriff Benny House by phone at his office in Alamogordo.
We'll be the first ones on scene, and we need to know what we were getting into. And they called and asked for our help, and then when we got there, they wouldn't tell us what they wanted help with, other than they want us to stand by. And you don't ask for a standby unless you feel like there's a threat or a potential threat. They would not even tell us why. They were very tight-lipped over it. I'm sure they'd taken directions from the AURA group, but it's disturbing to me that we weren't told anything. Now, for what it's worth, this morning I was contacted by the SAC, who runs the New Mexico FBI office, and he told me he heard some of my statements, and he assured me that he's going to look into it and see if FBI followed their protocol. And we're going to meet up sometime next week and see what both sides can do better in the future. I did say that it was chicken shit.
I also
What is
heard
this
today
criminal
from
investigation?
Paul M., a drone pilot from Alamogordo, who told me some of the houses and dormitories were still boarded up with wood this afternoon on September 19th, and that the security guard at the National Solar Observatory said there were still no details to give publicly about the alleged criminal activity. And as I talked with the sheriff, could it be a bomb threat? Is it something dealing with spy activities over White Sands and at Holloman Air Force Base? Is it a threat between somebody who is a person to the community? And why is it that they would still have boards over all of the windows, not technically really opened up? Now, this story is not over, as the sheriff told me this afternoon, until the rest of us in the public and the media and his office learn what really happened on September 6, 2018, to cause the FBI to shut down the National Solar Observatory, that it was the observatory and Aura that called the Otero County Sheriff's Office for evacuation and security help. Sheriff House invited me to keep in touch with him, so I hope that I'll have new information next Wednesday for you on my YouTube channel, and that we can continue to work out some of these broadcast issues that we have been having. In the meantime, if anyone listening is in a whistleblower category, and that you have firsthand information about any aspect of the so-called criminal activity at the observatory, please email me at earthfiles@earthfiles.com. All requests for anonymity are always honored, but some of you may have information that could help try to penetrate this strange ongoing mystery that, by Aura putting out the press release on Sunday that the observatory would be open on Monday, has not really solved this mystery. Now, sadly, in lots of other news today, here are more animal mutilation headlines. Quote, reward offered for information in East Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada. This time it is mutilated skunks, wild animals. A local animal rights group in Vancouver is offering a $1,000 reward for information that will help catch the perpetrator of the mutilations of 3 skunks found dead over the past 2 weeks, each one having some flesh and or fur very precisely cut out and off of its body. The 3 mutilated skunks were found between August 15th and Saturday, September 1st. All 3 suffered the same bloodlessly cut out excisions. The 3rd skunk was taken to a lab for necropsy, and I hope sometime soon to learn what the results of the necropsy has been and report them. Anyone with information about the skunk mutilations should contact the British Columbia SPCA at 1-855-622-7722. Now, back in the United States, yesterday there was a headline in Mesa, Arizona. Mesa residents worried after finding several mutilated cats. One resident told ABC 15 TV News, quote, I saw a white cat cut in half in the middle of the road near Grand Avenue and 9th Place. And then a few days later, I saw another one a little bit further down the road, also cut in half, close quote. Another woman posted on social media about 3 more dead cats on Grand Avenue, one that appeared to have its head bloodlessly cut off. Residents say the half-cat and beheaded cat mutilations are cut, quote, too perfectly to be coyotes. The cats were perfectly cut in half without blood, close quote. I've been reporting about bloodless and beheaded cat mutilations since the 1980s. Right now in London, England, the number of bloodlessly mutilated cats since 2015, in just the last 3 years, is now over 500. No one has been arrested and arraigned. Larger animal mutilations were also in the news this week. In Monroe County, Kentucky, near Bowling Green, a calf was found dead and mutilated on Friday, September 7th. The calf was 2 months old. Its hide had been cut out cleanly in 2 different places. 5 days earlier, the Monroe County Sheriff's Office was called out to a resident around 7:45 a.m. on September 2nd, 2018, because 3 miniature horses and a Siberian husky dog were strangely killed in the night. The Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife Resources told the Glasgow, Kentucky Daily Times, quote, "A wild animal did not play any role in the deaths of these 3 horses killed in Monroe County over Labor Day." Investigators reached their conclusion after a careful evaluation of the wounds and the scene. The husky dog found near the horses had not suffered any visible body surface wounds, and his death remains a mystery. And then yesterday, on September 18th in Williams, Arizona, a few miles directly west of Flagstaff, rancher John Mahan was shocked to find his 18-month-old Angus bull and a pregnant cow both bloodlessly mutilated. I have photographs now, after talking to a wildlife state inspector, of both animals, and the total lack of blood and the absolute precision of these cuts. They are like everything that I have been investigating since 1979. The bloodless and precise nature is what makes them so eerie. There is no gore, it is so precise. I will be producing a Earthfiles Real X-Files report that is protected by subscription access only, so that children and people who might be upset by these photos cannot go into the website without subscription password. But for those of you who have followed my work for the last 4 decades, these current brand new mutilation photos are classic. They are as extraordinary as anything that has been reported around the world in the last, since the early 1960s in the 20th century. And in this case, in talking to the livestock inspector this afternoon, it was a kind of, I'm going to say, shocking photo that he sent me to show how they found the pregnant cow. Her whole huge, about 1,800 pound body was shoved into a tall, very woody plant, sort of like between a bush and a tree, so that the back of her was absolutely out from the bush. And so as you look at the photo, you're looking at a hole, very clean, totally dry, no blood, that goes straight into the vaginal area, and everything is removed. But he said the calf, the unborn calf, they know was still there. So these animal mutilations that are happening around the world, and I got a call also this afternoon amidst all of this from an investigator in England who is going to be getting in touch with me in the next week or two about a very unusual animal mutilation there, and that is involving rabbits. So while we are on the earth trying to understand what these phenomena are around us, why would something, another intelligence, something that is incomprehensible to us, for 100 years be taking tissue and taking, some cases, unborn fetuses, and leaving scenes where there are no tracks around the bodies, and humans are baffled. And yet it goes on every month of every year since I began doing my investigations in September of 1979. We are now in September of 2018. And not only are the strange animal mutilations taking place in Canada and the United States and England, some of the cleanest, most precise large animals have been happening in Argentina. I've also been getting reports from animal mutilations in Australia again. So it is global. It continues. There is, in my records, there is no time of any year in which there is not some kind of small or large animal mutilation report somewhere on this planet. And what marks them from predator, I have shown in conferences all series of photographs of what coyotes, bobcats, and large cats and various natural predators do to a variety of farm animals. These are books that have been put together by the Department of Agriculture so that ranchers and farmers would see what wild animals would do to cattle, horses, sheep, and so forth, and to help protect the animals. When you look at a book that has been prepared by the Department of Agriculture just on this idea of this is what natural predators do, and every page and all the photographs, you're looking at blood, you're looking at torn tissue, you're looking at all kinds of tracks on the ground. All of that is missing in the half cats, the mutilated rabbits, the mutilated animals that are larger, the cattle, the horses, and it is ongoing. Why? I have speculated about this in my documentaries and in my books, and the only summary that I can give comes from people in the abduction syndrome and from people who have been whistleblowers, whether it's been on the federal level or a local level or intel, is that the animal mutilations around this planet fall into two categories. One, sustenance for something, and two, genetic harvests to keep perpetuating all kinds of hybridized or cloned bodies of an unknown nature that only the beam technology and the UFOs that are always seen in and around areas where mutilations are occurring seem to be focused on genetic harvesting and sustenance. Is that provable? There is so little when you get into the phenomena that seems hard provable. And I guess the best that I can offer tonight in the context of all of these different facets of different animals with different types of excisions around the world goes back to when I started investigating animal mutilations in the fall of '79. And between '79, '80, and then afterwards, as the TV program kept being broadcast and rebroadcast, and I kept getting communication from people around the planet and from a lot of ranchers. And what they would tell me is that they had seen a beam come down from a glowing object in the sky, either putting an animal down on their ranch or lifting an animal. Those are eyewitness testimonies. And the problem is that these people who have seen this beam technology raising and lowering animals do not want to speak on the record in front of a TV camera because humans are so afraid of being criticized by their fellow humans. So I offer that eyewitness testimony as some of what I heard going all the way back to the time that my documentary A Strange Harvest was first broadcast in May of 1980. And that I know that I have read Spanish translations and others coming from some of the countries in South America in which just in the last 15 or 20 years there have been people out fishing and they have seen something glowing and round in the sky, and then they have seen a beam come down, and where the beam came down is where they find mutilated animals. And this has been in Bolivia, this has been in the Chile area, in Peru, in South America, and especially in Argentina. And for those who are interested in reading more about some of these cases internationally, at earthfiles.com, if you go into the search and you put in animal mutilations, you get now, I think, probably about 300, 400 reports. And then you can do further searches, breaking it down into countries and places that you would like to do research. And I am going to try to just keep reporting the news as it comes at the Earthfiles YouTube channel and at earthfiles.com, with the idea that authorities want to protect all animal mutilation cases, in the sense that they don't want details given to the public. My own argument is that we need to know as much as possible about what is really happening on our planet. If there are alien presences that are involved now and have been in the past, in the distant past, with harvesting genetic material, I think that we all get stronger by knowing that. And that's why I'm going to try to keep you up to date when there are these rashes of mutilations. And I know that for some people it's tough, but we have to face what is actually occurring. And so with that in mind, and the fact that this was a day that started at 7 a.m. and I didn't get to interview the sheriff until after 4 and try to edit, and we're still struggling with coming up with a way that we can run audio and video so that I can share with you, that I would like now to ask Lori if the broadcast has been okay now, and maybe we could take some questions.
Yeah, the broadcast was fantastic. Everything worked great. And thank you so much for the super chats. As always, we really appreciate you.
Thank you very, very much.
Our first question tonight, Linda, could they be looking at animal tissue to measure results from a DART project, like a germ test or live DNA, etc.?
That is an excellent question. I remember having a discussion with John Altschuler, the hematologist and pathologist that I worked with for about a decade, and he was unfortunately hit when he was riding a bicycle and later died. He could have been working and helping for a much longer time. He was fantastic. And we had a discussion. Was there anything about the ear, eye, jaw flesh, down to clean bone, taking the tongue deep within the throat, almost in all cases taking some part of a sexual organ, either half of an udder or the teats from an udder or a whole udder, or as in the case of the mayhen, what happened to the bull. It's very odd. And I will not go into a lot of details. I will be showing the details in my earthfiles.com report. But imagine this, I'll describe it this way. If you went to the rectal area of this big, huge bull, and then you did a protractor circle, so that the edge where the rectum is, there was a perfect circle. This is coming from the livestock inspector who opened the body up. He said it was a perfect 360-degree circle. But when the animal was collapsed, it looked like a whole section of the belly up to the scrotum had been removed in one section. The penis had been removed in another section. In between the removal was a 3-inch band of untouched hide. Extremely strange, totally dry, absolutely no fluid, no blood, extremely eerie to look at. It's almost as if you have to start looking at this at like facets. Something has a need for something, and in the process of gathering what it wants, it is always leaving scenes that are intimidating to humans. Intimidating because we can't understand it, intimidating because we cannot do these kinds of crime scenes ourselves unless we had very precise surgical instruments and cauterization so that there was no blood. And that's another very interesting thing about these current cuts on the bull and the cow. I'm looking at the photos. Unfortunately, there was no necropsy, and I understand why the rancher decided that he would bury both the animals apparently earlier today. But on the photographs, the excisions have such a preciseness to them. It would have been very interesting to have seen what a pathologist might have seen if they had done a tissue sample and we had been able to see it under a microscope. Dr. Altschuler, over and over and over again, when I would go out into the field and gather tissue, gather from the body and from various places that he asked, and then he would look at it under the microscope and sometimes have me look, that he found that the collagen was cooked, the hemoglobin was cooked, there were other pathology signs of heat, but there was no carbon residue. And I've mentioned that before on this Earthfiles YouTube channel. And the lack of carbon residue then raises the question, what is the cutting instrument? Could it be some form of sound or something that we don't understand? But when you come back to these scenes and you look at what I was describing, for example, on the bull, and that there are these absolutely straight, perfect excisions, it almost is like a flaunting. Whatever is doing it is leaving a scene that they seem to know humans don't understand. No struggle in the ground, no tracks of the animal, no blood or fluid, which if it were predator, natural predator, or even humans, to take the excisions that are being taken and not have any kind of blood, that is extraordinary. So that is as much as I can say tonight in a general audience about that question, what could the possible use be? Is there another question?
You bet. What are your thoughts on biocentrism?
Biocentrism, would you ask if they would make their definition of biocentrism?
Well, I can certainly do that if you want to move on to another question.
Yeah.
Linda, do you think there is an alien connection with Sasquatch?
I definitely do, because I've interviewed several people who have been totally conscious, alive, in a forest. In one that is at Earthfiles, and it is my third book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, High Strangeness. The illustrations, the whole story, everything are in that book. And I recommend it because there's so much in Glimpses Volume 2, and this one particular case took place up in Snohomish in Washington. And the farmer, he called me, and he said that he had heard my work on Coast to Coast and Dreamland with Art Bell, and that something had happened that so disturbed him that he wanted to at least tell me. And then eventually he gave me permission, and he added the illustrations that you would see in Glimpses. And some of them are of this story are also at earthfiles.com. And the short form is he's out pulling weeds. The first thing that catches his attention is a sound like the trees. The trees are moving, but it's an absolutely still day. And when he looks, the trees are moving very, very wildly, and there's no wind. But then, just like pops in, is a big silver disc, one of those like the lens up and a lens down below. And he sees what looks like an opening in the bottom. And to his astonishment, standing there, holding his weed utensil, this silver disc puts down two, well, he said it was like seeing air in the shape of columns, that even though they came down in the atmosphere, in the air to the ground, he still saw them as three-dimensional, like tubes of air. And inside of each tube was a being that he said looked to him like a Filipino. Brown skin, slightly slanted eyes. Both of them had on blue, sparkly leotard type uniforms. When they got down to the bottom of these air columns, to use the farmers' words, they took off. They went like away from him. They didn't seem to even acknowledge him immediately. And then there came another, and in it, he said, was what he would have called a large gorilla or a Sasquatch. And the Sasquatch was put down in the ground exactly where the two beings had come down and walked off, and the Sasquatch went right off behind them. At that time, there were all kinds of animal mutilations around Snohomish. I interviewed and spent hours on the phone going over all kinds of documents and photographs with a deputy in the sheriff's office in Snohomish. He had personally gone out to the farm. He had taken plaster of Paris casts of these huge 17, 19-inch long footprints that were in an area not far from where the farmer had been doing the weeding, and the beings had come and the Sasquatch had come. And the deputy told me that he was getting calls, the sheriff was getting calls from people all over the region who were not only seeing tall gorilla-like animals, but they were hearing these high-pitched, eerie sounds. And he said one day in one of the investigations between the farmer's land and another person who had seen one of these creatures, the deputy said that he was crossing, like going from one farm to another, and there was like a creek and it had trees, and to his amazement he saw a deer that was hanging by the back ruff of its neck from a limb that had been freshly broken off that was 14 feet off the ground. He measured it. And he said, imagine the strength to what must have been lifting straight up the full-grown deer and hanging it on the limb that the, assuming it was the Sasquatch, broke off to make it into a hook that it could hang the deer by the scruff of its neck. And that's not the only time that I have heard about people finding wild game like elk, deer, hanging from a freshly broken off branch. What we need would be videotape that would run and was not edited of a scene showing all of this happen to say, well, here is proof. Or a bunch of people being able to see all of this happen live. And absent that, you have to give some deference to our fellow human family members who have an experience like this farmer in Snohomish. Haunted him his entire life, he said, and that was why he got in touch with me. And that he had dreams, thought he had been on a craft. Eventually, he worked with a professional hypnotherapist, and out came a huge story about beings that looked like the ones that he saw come down on the ground, that had a Sasquatch with them, some kind of hybridized creature that he understood was assigned to do work on this planet by these beings. A very complex story, and you can read about all of it in my third book, Glimpses of Other Realities, Volume 2, High Strangeness. What about one more question?
You got it. Linda, are there connections between the recent mutilations and your earlier work?
Oh, it's part of the same arc. If you go back to 1967, in September, it was also September, and that was the famous case of the horse found stripped of flesh, was cut, very, very, just perfect, right here, and everything up was, flesh was moved. The brain was taken. So the horse, those that I talked with the owners in Denver when I was working on the documentary A Strange Harvest and later my first book, An Alien Harvest. I talked with Burl Lewis, who he and his wife Nellie were the owners of this horse. And he said, when they found the horse that had been missing for a couple of nights, had not come in for food, he said it looked like the horse, who was lady, a female, should get up. And yet there was no flesh from this curve all the way up the head. And there was the pathologist, Dr. John Altshuler, who I would later meet in the 1980s, not knowing that he was the mystery doctor who had gone to the San Luis Valley on his own. Nobody knew he was there because he had read about the horse in the Denver newspapers, and he wanted to see for himself. And he said, inside of the chest area of the horse, every major organ had been cut out, and that there was no sign of clotted blood or fluid or even stain. He said, however, those organs were taken out of the chest of that horse. It was done meticulously with no fluid. And that is September 1967, San Luis Valley of Colorado. What I outlined tonight in September of 2018, the bull, for those of you who will see these photos, it is remarkable. The cow, the pregnant cow, we're looking at excisions. If you took the photos of what's happening in South America.
Can you bring the mic closer to the rain is drowning out?
Thank you. It's like we're trying to produce in total chaos around us. That all of the excisions on the classic mutilations, no matter what the size of the animal, they are always bloodless. They are always dry and tough to touch. The ground is not clawed up, and that's the same arc, the same excision pattern: ear, eye, jaw flesh, tongue, genitals, rectum, and in a female vaginal area, cored out. There are also variations like tails. Half a tail will be taken. The tail will be taken right up to the bottom of the end of the spine, and it looks glassy. It looks like something very hot went right through the tail, and I've seen this, and it looks just like a shiny marble. There are dew claws. Dew claws are in the up above the hoof in a horse or a cow. They are vestigial, and for reasons that are unknown, and the investigators in Calgary in Canada back in 1979 to 80, when I had finished A Strange Harvest and it was broadcast, the head of the animal mutilation investigation in Calgary in British Columbia called me. His name was Lynn Lauber, and he said, I have asked to see your documentary, and somebody sent me, at the time, was a copy. And he said, and I'm calling you because we agree that what is causing these animal mutilations is something from outer space, We have publicized up in Canada that it's a satanic cult called O, the letter O. He said that's just to get the public and the media off of our back. He said the truth is we are finding exactly the same evidence that you have reported in your documentary, and we have concluded that it is something that we do not understand. And he said one of the pieces of evidence that we have kept completely away from the public and the media was the bloodless excisions of dew claws. And he asked me at the time, would I withhold the removal of dew claws and the removal every once in a while of molars. And the molar excision is perfect. They are totally gone within the cow jaw and done so very perfectly without any cracking, nothing, just the tooth is gone. That was another piece of evidence that the Calgary RCMP asked if I would withhold for a while. And I did. I honored that for about a year. And then there were many mutilations that continued to be reported in which there was a tooth missing and a dew claw and some others. And I began to report it, now not worrying that it was going to be some signature that humans who might want to go out and mimic animal mutilations would do, which was what law enforcement was afraid of. There were too many. They were too incredible to be worrying about telling all of the evidence from my point of view. And so there is a complex pattern of the same exact pieces taken from bodies. If it is a large animal, which can be a horse, it can be a cow, it can be a deer, it can be elk, it can be reindeer, all of those have had the same types of mutilations. And then you come down to every domestic farm animal that you can think of. They have, at some point or another, been reported with these same bloodless mutilations. And then, starting in the late 1970s to early 1980s, I think it was really in the 1980s, there were the first half-cat or beheaded cats, and the reports came from Toronto, Canada, and Tustin, California, and Plano, Texas, Falls Church, Virginia. That's what I remember was an early pattern. And since then, up to 2018, not only those localities, but dozens of others, it's the same exact pattern. So it cycles. The patterns of tissue removal are similar animal to animal. And there are eyewitnesses from North America to South America and Australia who have seen lights in the sky at night or other strange flashes, like a bright flash would go off on a flash camera. A lot of that associated in and around the discovery of mutilated animals. Lori, I was going to end because I thought the storm was going to be louder, but it sounds like it's quieter. Want to take one or two more questions?
Did you want to go back to the other question?
Yeah,
about
bio.
centrism?
Yeah.
So what he said was the view that the rights of humans are not more important than those of other living things. And we can hear you fine, though.
Okay, yeah, it's quieter. It may get louder again. It's like we're living in monsoon territory in what is supposed to be a mountain desert. We need the water, though. We need the water to keep the drought away. So you can hear it's getting louder. Biocentrism. I personally have always had a deep feeling in my heart and my soul that all living creatures are important, and that phrase, the web of life, is one of the keys to us becoming a really civilized planet, living on a planet where we could survive with our fellow creatures. Because if we do not have respect and cherish all life, inevitably, I think that something that is conscious, as humans are, and has the challenge of living on a planet like Earth, with 7.2 billion other humans and counting, with knowledge that is coming from some of our brightest minds, that we cannot survive on this planet if we do not respect other life. We need biodiversity for our planet to thrive and survive. That means humans need biodiversity. We need a plethora of other living creatures on this planet with us in order for the planet to be healthy. And as we are in political arguments over whether or not our planet is warming to a dangerous level and will keep warming beyond a dangerous point, heavy rains have come this year in more storms. The computer projections are that it will become worse and worse. The energy in storms is going to increase because as you warm up each degree Fahrenheit, the atmosphere can hold that much more water. Water coming in floods is what is projected to be part of the problem on the Earth, where other places will go to bone dry drought. The computers have always projected that with global warming, you would have the juxtaposition of the opposites. Too much water, not enough water. Too many fires, not enough in cold temperatures to get rid of insects. We are seeing that in Montana, entire square miles of beautiful forests have been completely eaten up by insects. It's happening in many, many places. Without cold winters that can go down below freezing, the insect population of some, like those that are eating up the trees in the mountains, they increase. And then we lose other insects that we need, such as the pollinators. The pendulum is swinging on our planet. The pendulum swing is getting bigger and faster. All of us need to try to help our fellow human beings understand. Global warming is real. It doesn't matter political fights over it. The political fights don't change, don't alter the fact that our planet is warming. It is warming because there are thicker blankets of methane and CO2 in the atmosphere. And they are what cause, it's like putting a lid around the planet. And so we're getting hot underneath those layers. If Earthfiles, my news website, could reach everybody with everything that I have reported in the 2,600 and some in-depth reports that are there now from the last 20 years, you would find that scientists were reporting accurately what was going to be happening. All of the graphs, all of the chemistry, everything was there long ago. So now we are at an intersection. This is such a critical time on the planet. Socially, what is happening between men and women, between political parties, between nations, the issues of attacks in the arguments of whose God is superior or whose nation is superior or whose army is superior. Ultimately, that's what is going to destroy us. So I reach out to all of you who are coming on Wednesdays, hopefully not always with rain deluges, that we will continue to have this dialogue about some of the news that is not reported on the front pages of the New York Times, but that is important for you all to know, that there is the pressure of fact, ranging from animal mutilations to alien presences. And that the more you learn, the more I learn, the more we share together. Maybe we can help strengthen our neighbors, our families, and become much more involved politically in our country that is facing real challenges about what kind of nation we will be in another 2 years. So I am hoping that in this dialogue on Wednesday nights at the Earthfiles YouTube channel, at my Earthfiles website where I focus on science, the environment, and real X-Files, in the 4 books that I have done, in which I have laid out some of the most important information that I have about a variety of phenomena, and all the radio and television that I do, that I am at least helping to build a bridge between you all who want to know government policies of denial that have denied human knowledge, and what seems to me to be right now a revolution that is moving forward, that there are groups and organizations such as To the Stars. Their goal is stated: get black secret space engineering and technology out into the white world, where everybody, all scientists, all brilliant minds, can be applied to helping us solve all of these major problems that could either be our undoing in this century, or we are going to learn how to live together on this planet, understanding we're not alone in this universe, that the whole cosmos is so much more complex than we've ever been taught, and that one of the greatest pieces that may come into place as a true fact about the universe we are in this century is it's projected, it's simulated, it was made specifically to provoke and interact with consciousness, and that our brains are made in such a way, as scientists are now discovering, that we have quantum consciousness that interacts with a quantum universe. I am soon going to be doing an interview with one of the world's leading researchers on exactly that question and subject, and I look forward to bringing to you what we discuss. And on that note tonight, thank you everybody for being here, for your patience about the delay at the top. This was a tremendously busy news day for me. And every Wednesday, I will try to get started on time. But there is so much happening that I love you guys that stick in there and hang around no matter what is happening on our end. And we are going to continue to try to start inserting more in audio, video, and images if we can, so that we can bring to you some of what I'm talking about visually. That's our challenge. And thank you, everybody, tonight.